Hi, I'm Evan with POS Portal. Today we're going to be covering our P2 TINCheck webinar. That's me, Evan. I'm the product manager, and we'll be doing the presenting. So just a little bit about POS Portal, who we are, what we do. POS Portal, we've been in the industry for about 12 years. We do everything from from deployment services for terminals and equipment sales. We have a really comprehensive rental program. We also have a full CRM specific to the payments industry, and so that's what we'll be covering today. And we have just a great kind of presence here in the industry with, having our CRM system, having over 100 ISOs on our system using our service. So just a really great adoption in the industry for our CRM system. Just a little bit about us and our facilities. I'm speaking to you today from our headquarters in Sacramento, California. We also have our West operations, which is one of our deployment warehouses here in Sacramento. And we have our East operations, where we also do some of our East Coast deployment out of Louisville, Kentucky. So a little bit about TINCheck. I'll go ahead and read through the slide briefly, and then I'll go ahead and unmute Ray and let him add some detail in about TINCheck. So TINCheck was founded by a team of professionals that understand the difficulties in complying with multiple payee compliance regulations. TINCheck was founded with the premise of helping companies stay on top of these regulations by providing a single interface to meet payee compliance issues. To ensure maximum data security, TINCheck relies on multiple layers of protection to ensure all data is processed safely. So I know I saw Ray here had joined the webinar, so let me go ahead and find him so I can unmute him and we can hear from Ray. So give me just a second, guys. So Ray, I'm going to send you the audio pin that you might need to put in to go ahead and speak, but it's 33, so you need to put pound, 33 pound. There you go, Ray. Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we gotcha.
Great. My name's Ray Stewart. I'm with TINCheck. I'm the CEO of TINCheck. I helped to found the company, and what we're here about is to make sure that when you do your tax reporting or when you set up vendors, that you're compliant and that you don't get any taxes or penalties that you shouldn't be paying.
Perfect. Thanks, Ray. And anything else you wanted to add in about TINCheck itself?
TINCheck is it's hosted in redundant sites, so that if we go down on, sometimes you'll see outages of different types of computer failures and things like that. We're hosted in several sites across the country, so our goal is to be up 100% of the time.
Perfect. Well, hey, thanks, Ray. Thanks for joining us today. I'll make sure to unmute you as well at the end when we have any questions, and there might be some questions that you could help us answer or add some color to. So again, we appreciate and value our relationship with you, and again, thank you for coming. And I'm going to go ahead and mute you now for just a moment while we finish the presentation. All right, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and leave up some contact information here. This will be up towards the end, but what I want to do now is I'm going to jump over into P2 so I can demonstrate to you guys where we've integrated this where we've integrated TINCheck services into P2. So you're actually able to see, how we connected this into our CRM system. So give me just a second. Okay, so here we are in P2. So first of all, for anybody who's not familiar with P2 and our CRM system, please let us know. We're more than happy to do a full presentation or demonstration of our system on another call. That way you get an idea about kind of the full functionality and complexity of what we have in our products and what we offer. But today I'm just going to give a very brief kind of summary to give you guys, to frame up and give you guys an idea about where TINCheck kind of plays in to our product and how we've set up the integrations. So again, if there's questions about P2 itself, we'll be happy to cover those on another call. So I'm logged in P2, and what we wanted to do with TINCheck is we wanted to make the service available in several different places. The first one I'm going to demonstrate is we've enabled it during the sales process. So a few of our clients actually have said, hey, when I'm out selling to merchants, I want the ability to do a TINCheck or a validation right, while I'm in the sales process or while I'm talking to the merchant. So what we did is we set up the ability to allow you guys as a sales rep, sales managers, anybody to do this verification at any point in the sales process. So here I am on a merchant detail record. This is actually a merchant account, okay? And I can actually now here on the top click into verify. Now it's going to go ahead and grab any information that I would have already keyed in to P2. Now, you might need to maybe add the tax ID number if you didn't already have it. Maybe there's a suite number. Maybe there's another additional 4 to the zip code, right? Whatever information you want to add in here, you can add additional to what we've populated in out of the merchant detail record. Now, at this point, once I've got all this data in here, I'm going to click on Perform New Verification. Now, while we're waiting for the verification to spin and to come back, let's go ahead and take a look at one that I ran a few days ago, and we'll wait for the new one to pop in. So if you can see here, we've got a couple different verification types that we did with this check. So the first one we did was an address validation, and we did this U.S. Postal Service match found, so it looks like we're good with this address. It does match this as an actual business. Now, if you also look here, in this example, so we also have a death master file check that we did. So you can see there's no death master file match found. And now here's the new one that just popped in, right, 307. And if you look, it says, okay, the TIN and name verification, the IRS found no match. So we know there's an issue here with either the business name or the tax ID number not matching. Address validation, we saw that that's a valid address. OFAC check, nothing came back on that list. And the death master file, everything looked good. But if you look here, it says overall results as problems. So that way what we've done is we've indicated that there are problems directly on this check.
Hey everyone, this is Shobhit. I'm also part of the marketing team at POS Portal. And for any of you out there who are wondering what the OFAC check is, OFAC stands for the Office of Foreign Asset Control, and it is an important check that needs to be completed as part of the underwriting. So that's a very important check, and we'll actually talk to you a bit later about the implications that you can face if you've not performed these checks. So OFAC is the Foreign Asset Control check, and it's also very important to know that the person or the merchant that you are validating the record for is not in the death master file. So you obviously need to be dealing with a live person. Very important check. There are numerous examples in the industry where ISOs have been, I'm not sure if I can say fooled, but they waste a lot of time using records that were part of the death master file. So those two are the, just wanted to explain to you. Address validation, it's pretty self-explanatory. And TIN name verification, again, the tax ID number that you would want to make sure is correct. This one we did not get a match because we're not using a live tax ID number for our demo.
Great, thanks Showbiz. So guys, that is two ways that we're actually able to, that's one way we're actually able to do this verification. But let's go ahead and look at another way. So in this particular example that we just did, we would be validating a tax ID number. But let's say, for example, you have a merchant who's set up as a sole proprietorship and you want to validate their social security number. So let's go ahead and show you that. But real quick, before I go to there, let me back up and show you. Once we've done the verifications, guys, you're going to see a record of the verifications listed out on the merchant detail page. So if you look here, here's all the verifications that have been performed and a record of all those verifications. So that way you could look down, you could see when the verifications had come in, and you could see the actual record of those verifications. So you might say, okay, in my particular example in the real world, I want to check an individual as a sole proprietorship. So let's go ahead and click into the actual contact record itself. So here's Evan. Evan claims that he's the owner of a nice restaurant, right? And he might be set up as a sole proprietorship. So in this example, I'm able to click verify, and I can actually now verify, but I'm going to use the social security number instead. So let's go ahead and click perform new verification. So if you look, there's some fields missing. So we've got some control rules built in here. It says, hey, we're missing a zip code. So let's go ahead and update the zip code. So while we're waiting for this to spin, guys, this is going to check the same data, right? So if you look down, you can see here that it shows me we're missing some information, right? There was still something with the zip code. Maybe it didn't have the 4 digits of the +4 number there. The TIN name, everything looks good. This is an IRS match. It's been connected. It's found to be a valid IRS and TIN match to this merchant's name. The death master file, there was no match. Address validation, looks like this is a good address. And the OFAC, there was nothing found on the list. So this is how we're able to do these types of searches for either LLCs, S-Corps, any type of businesses that might be using a tax ID number. We're also able to do it for the individual merchants themselves who might be operating under a sole proprietorship. So what we're going to do, guys, is those are kind of the 2 really core ways that we allowed TINCheck to be integrated into our system. Now, the third way is a lot of our clients are doing some of their own underwriting and their own risk. And in P2, what we're able to do is we know that in the underwriting process, there's very different places where you might do the checks, or you might be pulling things like different levels of their credit information. You're searching all kinds of resources. Well, this TIN validation can also be used in that underwriting process as well. The same data is pulled in. So it's really just once we've made this connection into TINCheck, we're able to use this information validation and able to do these types of checks either during the sales process, maybe during the application process. We can also connect this data into an underwriting process. So we know that some of you out there might be doing your own underwriting. If you're interested in kind of looking at the full underwriting process within P2 and how that all comes together and where that TINCheck would be integrated, let us know and we'll be happy to set up a full demo. It's kind of a long demonstration of our underwriting process and how that workflows through our system. But we just wanted to cover that this TINCheck integration is a great bonus feature when it comes to using P2, because now you can really protect yourself. You can ensure that merchants you're signing up, that you've verified that all their information matches and that it's all correct. And you can do that during the sales process on an individual, or even after the sale during some of the underwriting or risk processes that you might be doing.
And just to add to that, as Evan pointed out, that the integration that we've done with TINCheck, it is pretty flexible. It is up to you where you want to bring in the integration and use the check. Some of our clients actually do it at the first stage when they're entering merchant information or the merchant contact information. At the beginning, they want to make sure that they have the right tax ID number and the address that the merchant has given them. It helps them to cut down on any time lapses before the deal has been processed or you start working on the deal. So it's entirely up to your choice and your business, your own business process of where you would want to do these checks. Now, as we've pointed out, the partner that we are using for doing these verifications is TINCheck. They are the company that has helped us come up with the integration. We use their services. We use APIs at the back end for the integration to work. For any of P2 customers to use the integration, it is very important to understand that you will need to set up an account with TINCheck. The contact information that you see on the screen right now, you can either get in touch with Gene or Lauren. They will help you set up an account with TINCheck. Once you've established that account, they will give you some credentials that we can then use to activate the integration in P2, which is your CRM.
Perfect. Thanks, Shobit. And guys, we don't have any cost to get these integrations set up. So the way it works is all you need to do is you need to be a P2 client and you need to have your account with TINCheck. You'll come to us and say, okay, I want to go ahead and do the verify during the sales process. You just give us those credentials. We'll get things set up. There's just a little configuration to do on our end. And once that's done, we plug in your TINCheck credentials and you're ready to start performing these checks.
The only cost that you will be, you will bear is your cost with TINCheck that you'll be paying them for the verifications or the checks you're doing. But for the integration as a P2 customer, you have, there are no costs that you will be incurring.
So I've got a few questions that are coming up. Looks like some of these it might help to have some additional resources to help us answer these. So let me go ahead and do this. Let me unmute Ray again, and I think we have Sarah on here as well. So let me go ahead and get you guys unmuted here so you can participate in these questions. We'll go ahead and unmute Ray.
Hi, guys.
Hey, thanks,
Hi,
Ray.
guys.
Perfect. So we have a question that came up that says, how many checks can you do in a day on one merchant? And that's from Sarah Ruhlman.
Sarah, because of IRS regulations, we actually tie into the IRS database here at TINCheck. If we do more than 4 checks on one particular SSN, they will preclude us from doing that check again for the day. It'll be a 24-hour lockout period. A couple of other things that I wanted to mention too, Sarah, that you probably had on your mind. The penalty for having a name and a tint that's incorrect is a $100 penalty. And that sounds pretty small, but when we work with companies like the world's largest online retailer and say Las Vegas, they use TINCheck in a very high capacity type way. If you have a couple of penalties per day, we see companies that have penalties in excess of $1 million per year. So I wanted to say it's a good business practice to go through TINCheck to make sure your names and TINs do match. And also, I think you were talking about, Evan, you were talking about OFAC violations. If you go to the TINCheck page, you can look at some of the penalties for OFAC violations. That means you were doing business with a customer that perhaps you shouldn't have been doing business with. And the penalties there are in the millions of dollars. And a lot of penalties as well are they're civil penalties, which can come back to the people who are actually running the business.
Yeah, great. So that, Sarah, that kind of answers your second question. Is the penalty for the merchant or the processor? That penalties actually fall on the processor.
Yeah, would fall on you. And
yes.
The funny thing is the IRS usually tells you about those penalties 18 months after you've filed your information at the end of the year. And I'm talking about 1099 reporting, maybe a 1099-K or a miss. And that means that you actually have 2 different penalties, because you got one this year, and then because it's 18 months later, you got another penalty, and at that point, they put you into a backup withholding position, which makes your interaction with the client very difficult, because when you go to pay them, say, $1,000, the IRS requires that you withhold, say, 20%.
Wow.
So it could really mess up your data flows or your business flows between you and your customer.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Ray. I appreciate it. So, hey, all the attendees, guys, on the webinar, I'm going to go ahead and run down the list and unmute everybody that's connected to the phone. Remember to please have us on mute unless you want to have a question, or unless you have a question that you'd like to ask. So myself, Shobit, and Ray are going to hang out here on the line to make sure there aren't any questions from anybody as I'm unmuting. You can speak, you can speak them verbally, or you can chat them in on the chat box like Sarah has been doing. So give me just a moment while I unmute everybody. All right, so that should be everybody that's connected to the phone. I've now unmuted. So guys, let us know if you have any additional questions. You can chat those in, as well as we have some contact information up on the screen for Shobit or our partner contact at TINCheck. Please feel free to reach out to either one of us if you have any additional questions after the webinar. But Shobit and myself and Ray will be here. If there aren't any questions, we'll go ahead and end the presentation in a couple minutes, but we'll hang out now and make sure there aren't any additional questions or comments.
Evan, one of the things I wanted to mention too is, besides the API, when they sign up for a TINCheck account through Laura and Leon, if they want to, they can actually go to the website and do a manual check. And if you wanted to see that, I could go ahead and give you an address and a username and password, and you could go through that and check that out as well. Kind of a visual representation.
Okay. So let's, we might have time for that, Ray. Give us just a second. I have a few more questions coming up. We are with First Data. They are doing TINCheck for us. Let's see. Let me get the rest of the question here. Let's see. how is this process different? Let me make sure I get your whole question here. Okay, so how is this process different? You know, I'm not entirely sure, Sean. I mean, if they're doing the TINCheck for you, I mean, they're definitely checking the same resources, I believe, or mostly the same resources to get these checks done. If you're having First Data do them for you, there might be some sort of fee they're charging you or something along the lines that First Data is actually hitting you for that check. I think the real power in P2 is that we want to give the power back to our ISOs, right? We want you guys to be able to do these validations, these checks for you. You know, First Data might not do it early on in the sales process. They might do it, you know, during the underwriting. So this way, we just want to enable you guys to have the ability to perform them when you want through your own vendor and your vendor of choice without having to go through First Data and maybe paying them additional fees. Let's see, it says First Data is not in real time, right? So that's a great, thanks Sarah for adding that in. You know, what we're trying to do, guys, with TINCheck is, again, just give you guys the ability to, you know, protect yourself, look at these resources, and have this power yourself directly inside of our system and be able to do that on a regular basis whenever you want.
And just to add to that, P2 also gives you the ability to board merchants. We have online applications that can help you board merchants. So a tool like TINCheck really, you know, I would say adds much more value there, because when you are boarding, you don't want to really wait for the surprise to come back later that, hey, the basic information that you submitted was incorrect. And, you know, so that's I believe is the strength of P2 as a CRM, where, you know, we have these different tools that enable you and give you more power at different points in the whole process, but makes the whole process complete and more secure, so that you don't get surprises later in the process.
So I see Mary says, I believe the First Data is not giving us the ability to do the check at any time along the process, right? So again, guys, you know, your processors might give you some of this ability, but again, the point of integrating this into P2 is that your reps aren't wasting their time going through the sales process, working the app. If there is a problem, you can spot it early on or solve it early on, right? The other key piece here is that we're storing the record of the verification. So if First Data comes back later on and says, hey, we're declining this, or maybe your other processor comes back later on and says, hey, we're declining based on something, well, if you've already done the verification and it came back okay for you, there might be a problem on their end. So this way, again, you have the power, and that's really the key here, I think, with this integration, is giving you guys the control, the ability to do these checks when you want, in the time, in the manner that you want, and storing the record that you prefer, or you perform that verification inside of P2.
And just to...
Evan, I'd like to add to, when you store that information, the IRS comes back and they say that participating payers may cite a payee name and TIN match as reasonable cause to get out of a penalty assessed by the IRS.
Great.
So, you know, the storage that you're doing there is a very important part of this process, because it really gives you the penalty abatement argument with the IRS should something ever happen. But the whole point of this is to prevent that from happening in the first place.
Great. That's excellent information. Thank you, Ray. Yeah. So guys, you heard that, you know, our verification, not only did we perform it, you know, if your reps performed it during the sales process, and several of our clients are actually demanding that their reps, as part of their workflow and their process, that their reps perform this verification before they do the application. So that's kind of, they put that in place, you know, to protect themselves and to ensure that every single one that they've done, or every single merchant that they sign up, has had that verification performed. And they actually check that as part of the process before they'll allow their sales reps to submit that application. So we have another question here. What is the process when the merchant info is not matching? Are we able to send a W-9 to TINCheck, who will then forward the information to the IRS to update the record? So Ray, you might have some information on that.
Sure. It doesn't quite work that way. Here's what's happening. When you're out in the field or you're completing this process, you are getting a W-9, which is a certification that this person, this is their name for doing business, like a nice little restaurant, and also it's their taxpayer identification number. When you're out in the field and you get this back and you find out that the TIN and the name didn't match, maybe it was a transposition error and you're going to fix it right then. So as part of your process, you should have the W-9 there, and you have all of the information for it, and then you should validate the information on the W-9 through the TINCheck process, through the API that's in the POS. So that's what you do. If you find out that the W-9 is not working out there in the field, that's when you should really try to say, well, do you have a DBA or do you have something else? And you should amend that W-9 right at that time.
Perfect. Yeah, because we know a lot of times, and I know, guys, most of the people on the call, we've sold to a lot of merchants that have multiple locations. Maybe they have several businesses. They have multiple LLCs formed. And, we've all come across situations where maybe just the merchant itself maybe messes up and doesn't actually, is confused about which tax ID numbers they're using or what legal name they have versus a DBA for one of their businesses. So, a lot of confusion can be cleared up early on, and like Ray mentioned, you could have just miskeyed a number or fat fingered something and put in a double number, but this way you're going to spot all of that early on and have the ability to ask the merchant for clarification. This way you can prevent that additional visit to the merchant once you've done the app, and we all know we hate those visits because you should just been able to sign the app and complete the deal and make it done at that point, but that extra visit is definitely never fun for anybody.
And going back to Mary's question, she says, I believe that First Data is not giving us the ability to do the check at any time along the process. We have to board the account first, and then we have to watch for validation misses. I think, Mary, we can go back and check and see what some of our other customers are doing. If they are, who work with First Data, if they can do the checks before, to make sure that the information that is going to go in is correct and there won't be any validation misses. And I think probably you can also check with First Data and see and tell them that, hey, now I have the ability to do TINCheck. Is there a fees? Maybe you don't know about it. Figure out if they're charging you fees for that. And if you can have the ability and give yourself the power to do the check. So, you also avoid the fees if they're charging one, and you're also sure that there aren't going to be any validation misses once you've boarded the merchant.
Perfect. And I know, guys, we've been citing First Data as kind of the example that's come up, but I'm sure that this similar type of process, is available or is happening with all the different processors. So Mary says, thank you. I will look into that because right now it is after the fact. You're right. It is after the fact, guys. And, again, we want to give you guys the power. So any other questions, guys? We're right about 35 minutes on the webinar. I just want to make sure there aren't any additional questions or comments from anybody else. Again, I wanted to thank Ray and the whole TINCheck team and that whole partnership. We're really happy to be working with you guys, and we appreciate you joining us on the webinars. Everybody else, there is available copy, a recorded version of this webinar on our YouTube channel. So if there's any additional, you want to view it again, or there's anything you might have missed, you can access that on our YouTube channel as well. So I think that looks like all the chatted questions that have been coming in. I will hold off for a few more minutes and make sure that there's no other questions or comments. If I don't hear anything in the next couple minutes, I'll go ahead and end the webinar. But again, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yep. Thank you, Ray. Oh, let's see. We had a fire drill during the portion of the webinar. All right, so somebody had a fire drill. I just wanted to know, is there a specific turnaround time for the TIN match to come back as a match or mismatch? So it's real time, guys. I mean, within P2, when you're keying in the match information here, and let me pull up the screen again, it's in real time. So when I'm coming in here and I'm keying in this information here, whether it be social security number, tax ID, or whatever I'm doing, all this information is truly in real time. So it's actually dialing out. It's going to give you a real-time check. You're not waiting for next day. You're not even waiting an hour, right? This data is coming back to you right away. So that way you're able to do exactly what you need to do and do those checks immediately and get that type of information, when you need it. And that's out in the field. That's over the phone. That's when you're doing the sales process. And, and as everybody's been moving a lot more towards kind of the tablet, you can even do this on your phone or your tablet. Maybe you visit a merchant and you're about to do an application and a merchant says something that sounds kind of fishy and you want to validate their TIN before you waste your time. There you go. So we have another comment from Carolyn, says our system takes 7 to 14 days. We definitely want to speed that up for you, Carolyn. So, we could speed that up by 7 to 14 days. Let's see. Perfect.
And then I think you're closer to 7 to 14 seconds.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yes. So, Mary, I saw that you'll be kicking off your meeting for P2 tomorrow. We'll make sure to bring up TINCheck during that discussion. And yeah, it's a great addition to anybody that's using P2, really all around, guys. It's just a super valuable tool, and we can't stress how easy we've made, and it's just so simple. I mean, it's just a cleanly integrated part of our system. It's so easy, so simple, so clean.
Evan, I'd like to point out, too, on the screen that you have up there, you only put in a zip code that was 5 digits. It was the 95692.
Yep.
Or the 95. If you look back at the verifications from TINCheck, you'll see that they come back and they actually give you the additional 4 digits. And then the last 3 digits at the very bottom are the delivery point verification as well.
Oh, okay.
So you're really getting a lot of information back in this API when you guys go out there. And it's not just, it's just not the TIN and the name, but the Death Master file is checked against the Social Security database, Social Security Administration's latest database. You also have the address validation, which goes against the USPS latest database. And the OFAC check is against the OFAC database for Office of Foreign Asset Control, and that's specially designated nationals, basically people you shouldn't do business with. And that database is sometimes updated 2 and 3 times a day.
Wow.
And as soon as it's updated, the TINCheck database is updated, because we're checking the latest information that's out there.
Perfect. Great. Well, great, guys. I think that concludes most of our questions. Thank you again, Ray. I have one more. What do we do when we have a W-9 information and or copies of a tax return and still can't get a match?
That's kind of a special situation. Evan, if you wouldn't mind going to the TINCheck site.
Sure.
TINCheck.com. And this will be a valid thing for people to take a look at if they want to. Go ahead and use my email address as the login name. That would be ray@1099pro.com. So log in on the right.
Yep.
And user ID is ray@1099pro.com. And password would be 1099. We'll just make it easy there. Click accept at the bottom. And then for the TIN on the next screen, I'm going to ask you to type in this number, okay?
Yep.
94-168-7665. And for the name, under last name, company name there, just go ahead and put in Mickey Mouse.
Okay, so the last name.
Mickey Mouse. That you can put the whole name in the last name field there. It's a little easier.
Yeah.
And then click Run Validation at the bottom. So if I had a problem with the W-9, I might go into the site interactively, and Lauren can give you a username and password there. And this is what's going on really with your API, except you don't have this graphical interface. You're just bringing the data back there. Notice that it says no IRS match found on that TIN and name combination does not match IRS records. However, we did find an EIN name lookup, and we said the possible match found here is Bank of America. So if you had a W-9 on your desk and you really didn't know what was going on, you might just use your username and password and go into the TINCheck system and say, is there anything associated with this EIN? And then I would go ahead and try, maybe it was just a misspelling on your W-9. So I try keying in the information. Maybe you couldn't read what they wrote on the W-9. You might type it in differently then again for the name. Instead of Mickey Mouse, you'd put in Bank of America up there and try it again and see how it worked.
Sure.
So you can do a little research with the TINCheck, but really, POS is validating everything to make it 99.99% clean, but you may just have a few of these W-9s. Maybe they've been sitting around for years, and you want to clean them up. Well, you can go back there and clean them up a little bit, too, if you want to.
Great.
And this is a great tool to help you do that.